All right, hey everybody. So, welcome to our interview. You actually weren't necessarily invited because you have to be here because you're watching this in class. But, anyways, welcome nonetheless to our conversation. So, I have with us a special guest who you actually might recognize because we have seen her face and my face side by side in our heredity lesson. So we have with us tonight the one and only Sarah Norman. Welcome, Sarah.
Hello. Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, all of us. So my first question kind of has to do with like, why are you here? What are you doing here? So you, as your white coat kind of entails, you're going to school for something that's a little bit more advanced than just a regular old like college class. So what are you going to school for?
Yeah, so I am in physician assistant school. It's a graduate program. It's about 2.5 years long. We don't get the summers off like you do in high school or middle school. Basically, a physician assistant has very similar roles to a doctor in that we can prescribe, we can see patients, we can write treatment plans and all that stuff. And we can work in a lot of different places, like an ER or urgent cares. We can work in orthopedics. Anything you can think of, we can pretty much work in those situations.
Hmm, that's very cool. And so you said the PA stands for physician's assistant, right?
Physician assistant. Yep.
Very cool. Nice. So with being your older brother, I know a little bit more of your backstory, but your story of getting from where you were, like us both graduating from the same high school
Mhm.
here in Ringgold, and afterwards we're a little bit different. So, what were those different steps in your journey from, like, say, from high school all the way to where you are now in PA school?
Yeah, so my first step was like getting introduced to the career. I was in a club called HOSA in high school, Health Occupation Students of America. We did a little shadowing thing there, and I was first exposed to a PA. I saw him do all his cool things in the ER, and I was like, that's what I want to do when I grow up. So from then on, I graduated high school. I went to get my bachelor's degree, my 4-year degree at UNG, University of North Georgia. I did exercise science and biology. And then from there, in order to get into PA school, you have to have a certain amount of direct patient care hours, is what they call them. So you kind of have to get hands-on experience. So when I graduated college, I took a couple years and I did a few different things. I did phlebotomy for a while, which is when you draw people's blood. I did home health care. We dealt with people who couldn't necessarily get to the clinics, people who were on hospice, stuff like that. And then I did senior living, so like a nursing home type thing, taking care of our geriatric population. And then finally, I worked in psychiatry on an outpatient clinic as a medical assistant. So lots of different things. And then finally, I had enough of the patient care hours and experience to get into VA school, and I started this January.
Very cool. That's nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome, though. The show, like when we think of kind of like advanced schooling or like medical related schooling, I think kind of like, oh, it's just here to there, but there's also some requirements. We get some hands-on stuff
Yeah.
before that's valuable, not just for getting to the school, but just for your future in this role.
Yeah, I feel like it's really that requirement for PA school kind of helps you be humbled so that when you are higher up as a provider, you're not looking down at that MA and thinking, oh, you're the worst medical assistant because you've been a medical assistant before. You know what they go through, you know that they're answering the calls and doing all the behind the scene work. So it allows you to have appreciation for the people that would be like below you and like treating everybody with respect because you know what they're going through.
Yeah, that's great. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So let's look now at like PA school, this recent kind of new spot of your journey.
Mhm.
So what do you learn about PA school? What have been some experiences that you've had in PA school so far?
Yeah, so we have a bunch of classes this semester. Next semester, it'll get more specific. But in this semester, we're kind of setting a foundation that we're going to work on for the rest of PA school. So we're learning a lot of physiology, which is like what your cells do and how they do them, and how hormones work and how your cells send signals to each other. And we're learning a lot of the anatomy that goes along with that physiology. So where your bone is, where your femur is, where your ears are, and what they do. We've gotten to do the cadaver lab with that. And for those who don't know, the cadaver lab is when people donate their body to science after they die. And then we are able to study their bodies. I think you guys have done a dissection already. So it's kind of like that, a little more respectful. We're super thankful for the people and their contribution to our education. But that has been super neat too, to kind of see the body systems outside of the textbook as well. So I've loved that. And then we have other classes too, like we're doing psychiatry right now and counseling, and we're doing ethics to kind of learn like the human side of medicine as well. So it's been a really well-rounded this semester. Next semester, we'll be doing more specific, and from then on, more specific, like honing in on gastrointestinal for 2 weeks. And then after that, doing cardiology, really honing in for that for 2 weeks. And then we'll kind of cycle through things that way. So a little different.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's neat to hear too, that it's not just medicine, but also the things like surrounding around it. But also like the very hands-on medical side of things, like the cadaver lab, like dissecting human bodies in a respectful manner, but dissecting that to where like when students are in middle school, 7th grade, the little experiences we have with a frog or a pig or something like that is actually setting the stage for potential like medical careers, like as a PA student, or a nurse or something like that. So that's pretty neat to hear. So thinking about like now in the future, so past PA school, like what are some different ways you think like you personally can maybe like bless or help other people by learning these things that you're learning at PA school? Like you said, like a wide foundation of things, and you'll get more specific later. How could these things help you be like a blessing to other people as you move on to the next stage of your journey?
Yeah. So what we're doing now, like learning in school, I kind of see as an investment in myself, so that later on when I am in clinic, I can use that investment to bless other people. Because nobody really wants to go to the doctor's office. Nobody wants to go to the clinic because that means you're sick, something's wrong. But if I, as a PA, can take all this knowledge and this positive energy that I've learned about over the last 2.5 years and bring that to the table for them and kind of make that experience as good as I can and offer them healing and offer them compassion while they're in my care, like I see that as the biggest blessing for me and for them. So that's going to be really cool. Now I'm just kind of building up to it. But I feel like if I take my job seriously right now as a student, then I'll have that more potential moving on to help other people.
Yeah, that's impactful. I think even for me, like how important the here and the now are for the future, but also like for the here and now. But keeping that future in mind of like what you're doing, what you're building educationally or experientially, or even kind of your attitude and viewpoint on life, how that really matters for the future. So that's the foundation for stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
So transitioning a little bit, let's kind of draw this a little bit bigger picture now. So we, as a class, this is kind of our introduction to body systems. We're about to get into body systems, learn about the body systems, the 11 different body systems and what they do and how they work together and stuff like that. But we're learning it, one, because we kind of have to. It's a good thing, like it's to meet our standards and for the students so they can make good grades on assignments and stuff like that. But it's also really important in a wide range of things. So first of all, let's ask this question more to you as a physician's assistant student, and in that realm of like doctors and nurses. Why is it important for physician assistants, doctors, nurses, and other medical personnel to know about the different human body systems? Maybe not just one. Why is it important for you to know and learn about all of these systems?
Oh my gosh, our bodies are so cool in that you can't just study like the skin and be like, oh, I know the skin. I can't think about anything else because it interacts with everything. It interacts with your endocrine, your respiratory interacts with your kidneys. Your everything is like one unit and they all work together as a team.
Mm.
So if you know everything, then it gives you a little clues on what's going on. And this one might actually be a result of an issue in another one.
Mm.
So it's cool how they all work together. God made us so cool in that everything is designed uniquely to fit perfectly with the next thing. Like all this protein might stimulate this protein and that protein stimulates that protein at just the right amount. And I don't know how it works. I'll never know how it works. Maybe I can ask God that one day, but like it's so beautiful. And the more I learn about anatomy, the more I'm like, holy cow, like it's so perfect. Like how on earth did he create this to work so perfectly? But I feel like it's great for doctors and nurses and PAs to know about anatomy and how God made us because it gives us clues to solve the puzzle. So our patient is our puzzle and we're the detectives. It gives us like, oh, if it's hurting in this part of the body, then maybe it's this bone or this nerve because I know that this bone and this nerve are there. So it kind of puts tools in your toolbox for what it could be.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it's important for our doctors and our nurses and our physician's assistant when we go into the doctor to help us figure out like that puzzle of our bodies, the complex system of systems that our body is. Why is it important for my students to know about the body systems, like personally in their own lives? Why is that important?
Yeah. I think it's good for just a regular person to know so that if you're even having an issue with yourself, then you can go to the doctor and say, hey, I'm hurting here. I think it might be this. You can kind of tell them, you can be knowledgeable in your own body enough to give them good clues or better clues for what your issue is. I also think that it's just good for anything. Like if you're an artist, if you're going to draw a person, it's good to know, hey, this is what the anatomy looks like in that place. If you're doing physics, maybe you're talking about muscle movements and the angle of the movement. So it can really be applied to so many fields that it's not just like healthcare, it's just not healthcare workers who need to know it.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's your body. Like this is our home. We
Mm.
only get one home, so I feel like we should know about our homes.
Yeah, that's great. Very cool. So, Sarah, to kind of wrap this up, just a kind of maybe a personal question, kind of a fun question before we get started. Or maybe before we end, maybe one more question. I might have one more, maybe one more. We'll say that for a second. But what has been like your favorite in all of your kind of like medical education, starting in like high school, like you shared that experience all the way into now? What's been kind of like your favorite body system to learn about and why? Why is that so that one body system, whatever it might be, what is the most interesting to you and why is that?
That's hard because I love them all. I think a newfound love that I've found, I'll tell you my newfound love and my old faithful. My newfound love is the urinary system and like the kidneys. Oh my gosh. You thinking about this little baby organ in your abdomen, you're like, no big deal. I could lose one and still be okay. It does so much. It like regulates your blood pressure. It gets rid of toxins. Uh, I can't even give you the whole list. It's amazing. It like determines how many vitamins and minerals and stuff you have in your body. So one little baby organ can do all this crazy stuff and you don't even think about it because you're like, oh, that just makes pee. But it's insane. It's how complex and how and beautiful and how it like meshes with all the other organs and even your bones have an effect and kidneys have an effect on your bones. Like it's insane. So that's my newfound love. And then my old faithful is the muscular system. It's just like so cool how they each attach in different ways in order to form all your different movements and how they all work together. And then that has been really cool to see in the cadaver lab because we have different donors, individuals that we work with there. and seeing the variability in one person versus the variability in another person. So, like muscles might be different sizes or shapes or lengths, but they're beautiful and they can all work in like the same way to achieve the same goal, even though they look different.
Hmm.
So that's been neat too.
Yeah,
So,
very cool. Well, I've got one more question. It's like not a question that I've given you beforehand, so this is kind of off the cusp. But do you have any like core memories of seventh grade, embarrassing or really great, that you can share with us if it's
oh
within
gosh.
reason and appropriate? Like, is there a seventh grade, maybe some experience with a teacher that was really great or something from seventh grade specifically? You have anything for us?
I remember my seventh grade teacher. I cannot remember his name, but if I could point him out in a lineup for sure. I think it was Mr. Copeland. Maybe I'm wrong. He we would all have our textbook out. He really taught us out of the textbook a lot. And I'm gonna put this down. He would sit there like this on his seat and watch us every day. And we were learning human anatomy too. And so I was definitely into it, but it was a interesting teaching style. But so we
Yeah.
would just flip with the textbook every day. But I liked seventh grade. I liked that we learned in human anatomy better than earth science in sixth grade.
I mean, I've got to agree with you there. I'm thankful to be teaching and in seventh grade. It's a really awesome range of topics that we get to cover, and
For
the
sure.
the body system, as we'll learn about guys in just a minute, it's kind of pieces together everything that we've talked about. Where we start talking about matter and atoms, those are our first couple of units to start with, and how those atoms can work together to be elements, to be compounds and molecules, which can be macromolecules, which can then be form cells, and these cells can work together to make um, um,
Issues.
yeah, by different processes with DNA and tissues and then organs, and then we get the body system. So all these things, like all these little topics, like why does this matter? Why does this matter? Why does this matter? And we get the body system. It's like, oh, this is all connected.
Yeah.
And so it's like kind of like an aha moment of material that we get to see, which is great. So
It's so beautiful. It's
it
so pretty.
is so cool. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for
Yeah.
being here with us. It's been awesome to hear from you, get to hear your experiences school wise as you continue to work towards becoming a physician's assistant without that little S on your name badge, without that. Get that S off later on. So great to hear that, and great just to hear about what your interests are as you go in and through PA school, but then also to hear a little bit of what you thought of seventh grade, what you remember the most about it, which is so. Thank you so much again. It's a blessing for us as we move on to hear a real life person. You are real, and I know you well. My students might not. They might remember your birthday being on the board back in January and them asking me, "Who's Sarah Norman?" But to hear from a real life person that me and all my students can learn from, and maybe even aspire to as my students continue on through their schooling, and who knows what the Lord has for them after Silverdale. So thank
Yeah,
you
thanks so
so
much.
much. It was great having you.
Good luck with body systems. I hope it goes well. Hope you love it as much as I do.
Yes. I hope we all do, all me and my students too. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye.